So recently Topuria has been talking about moving up a weight class to lightweight, so I thought this would be the perfect time to predict and break down a potential fight between him and Makachev since they both hold the belts in their respective divisions. And you guys already know how it go. Let's discuss the strengths and weaknesses of each fighter. So Ilia Topuria's biggest weapon is his boxing. The guy's hands are next level. He has very technical boxing, great timing and great precision on his punches. And on top of that he has insane power as well. But besides his offensive skills, he's also very good defensively. He has great shoulder rolls and great head movement. But besides his striking, he's also a skilled grappler, which is quite surprising considering how much he uses his striking. But I think he actually started out with wrestling or something like that. And surprisingly, he also had quite a decent amount of submissions on his record. Like not too long ago, he did submit Bryce Mitchell, who's a very legit grappler. And another thing I don't see people talking about is his fight IQ. When he got dropped by Jai Herbert, he switched to a wrestling approach before eventually knocking him out. Against Emmett, he basically just fought behind his jab and made reads on him. And against Volk, he was pretty passive in the first 2 minutes because he was downloading data. And after that, he started turning it up, especially in the second round. But in my opinion, he does have one pretty obvious weakness, and that is the leg kicks. He stands very lead leg heavy, which is a recipe for getting your leg kicked in. However, he is pretty good at blocking body kicks and stuff like that. And this isn't really much of a weakness, but he is quite short, so his reach isn't insane, but his style isn't based on being a rangy guy anyways, so it doesn't really matter. So Makachev's biggest strength is of course his grappling. He's one of the best grapplers in the UFC, possibly even the best. I think Hamzat is actually a step above him, but regardless, he's a very solid grappler. Now, when it comes to the striking, he's no slouch either. He actually has very good technique. He's very fast, powerful. He has good kicks compared with good boxing, but I would definitely say his kicks are the best part of his striking. And he's also very big for the division and overall very balanced, which is a big reason to why he doesn't have any obvious weaknesses. He does slightly slow down though, and I think that's due to the weight cut. And a consequence of that is that his striking does become sloppier. For example, sometimes when he throws punches, he returns his hands to the hip, which is very bad against someone like Topuria. Now let's go over the win conditions for each fighters, and we'll start with Topuria. And Topuria is gonna want to keep this fight on the feet. He's gonna want to pressure forward with boxing, because if he fights off the back foot, he's gonna get hammered by Makachev's kicks. And overall, he's just gonna want to lure Makachev into throwing hands with him, because that's when he's gonna catch him. Now Makachev on the other hand is gonna want to stay at long range and use his kicks, aka his best weapon on the feet. And he's also gonna want to avoid the boxing exchanges entirely. And when the opportunity presents itself, he is gonna want to get this fight to the ground, because if he gets Topuria to the ground, it's gonna be huge for him. But this is actually a pretty hard fight to predict in my opinion, because both of them are very well-rounded fighters. Like, they're both good grapplers. Of course, Makachev is significantly better in that department, but when it comes to the striking, it's a little complicated, because they're both incredibly good strikers, but they're very different. Makachev is a southpaw who's very big for the division and therefore stays at range and uses a lot of kicks. But he does have hands too, as he showed in the Poirier fight. Topuria on the other hand is more specialized in boxing. He kind of switches between a Philly shell and a high guard and likes to fight in mid-range to close range, and he doesn't really throw kicks besides calf kicks. So who do I think will win between them in the striking? Well, as I said before, it's tricky, but I would probably lean more towards Topuria, and people might reference back to the Poirier fight where Makachev did very well with his boxing against a boxer. And Poirier is definitely one of the best, if not the best boxer at lightweight. But in my opinion, Topuria is a lot better. First of all, I think he has faster hands than Poirier because he's built smaller and is therefore able to transfer his weight around and rotate his body faster. Then he arguably has a lot more power than Poirier because he was the first guy to sleep Holloway, which is something Poirier wasn't able to do. And I think that overall he just seems to have better precision and timing than Poirier has. And Poirier was actually kind of working Makachev on the feet too. Like, don't get me wrong, Makachev did very well on the feet, but Poirier landed some clean shots that hurt Makachev in that fight. And you also have to look back on the first Volk fight, where Volk kind of put a whooping on Makachev and even knocked him down, and Topuria is definitely a better striker than Volk, even though Volk is a really good striker himself. So if Topuria and Volk were able to perform like that, what's stopping Topuria from being able to do better than those two? But that said, I do think Makachev can perform well against Topuria on the feet, if he keeps his distance and uses a lot of kicks, especially leg kicks, because again, Topuria stands very lead leg heavy, and that does make it harder to defend leg kicks, and Makachev could also set up a head kick with leg kicks like he did against Volk, and potentially even knock Topuria out with that. And Makachev is also going to want to use his clinch a lot in this fight, because an age-old strategy when facing someone who's shorter is to clinch them up whenever they enter into close range. There is one issue though, and that's Makachev using the tie clinch a lot. While the tie clinch isn't bad, because you basically have complete control over the head and a lot of strike options, you have no control over the arms of your opponent, and we saw this in the Poirier fight, where Makachev had Poirier in the tie clinch, and Poirier was just unloading hard body shots on Makachev. So it is quite the double-edged sword for Makachev, especially against someone like Topuria. Now, we also can't talk about this fight without discussing the grappling, because the best way to neutralize a dangerous striker is by taking him down. And the difference between Topuria, Volk, and Poirier is that Volk and Poirier has had their takedown defense tested against top tier grapplers. While we can't really say the same for Topuria, the best showcasing of his takedown defense was against Bryce Mitchell, who's a very good grappler, where he defended a lot of takedowns, and if he got taken down, he would just get back up. But the problem is that Mitchell isn't close to Makachev's level, and therefore it's kinda hard to predict how well he will defend against takedowns. But I will say that he does have some things going for him in that department. The first one is that he is significantly shorter than Makachev, which makes it harder for Makachev to get to Topuria's legs, and the other one is that he has a Greco-Roman wrestling background and a black belt in BJJ, so he's not a slouch when it comes to grappling. With that said, I think this is one of the hardest fights to predict right now, because they're both so incredibly good, and it's just hard seeing Makachev losing, but I do think Topuria has a better chance than most lightweights right now, and I think this fight really comes down to how well Topuria defends the takedowns, because honestly, I can just really see Topuria shinning Makachev in the stand-up. Topuria hits harder than Volk and Poirier, he's also more precise with his punches, so if Makachev's getting dropped by Volk, I could definitely see him getting dropped by Topuria, but if Makachev is able to take Topuria to the ground and keep it there, he could submit Topuria or do enough damage to take home the rounds. But I think a big problem for Makachev is that he has fell in love with his striking, so when he doesn't get the takedowns, he just resorts back to his striking, and sometimes he does get very sloppy with his striking due to him gassing out from the weight cut, and if he gets sloppy, I could definitely see Topuria closing that distance and putting him down with a vicious combination. But then again, Topuria's never been tested against a good grappler, so the safer option might be Makachev, because if you're picking Topuria, you are kind of making a guess that he will defend the takedowns and survive on the ground and be able to get back up. So I know a lot of people might get pissed off at this, especially all the Makachev fans, but I just have a feeling that Topuria will be able to survive on the ground against Makachev, and he will also get a lot of opportunities to put him away on the feet. So I will actually go with Topuria here, although I do think this fight is more of a 50-50 situation, so Makachev is definitely not a bad pick. I would honestly say he's a more safe pick, but sometimes you have to risk it for the biscuit. But I think that's it for today, guys. Check out my last video where I talked about Jamal Hill's Twitter cope. Anyways, thanks for watching, subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Do you think Ilia Topuria beats Islam Makachev? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and also don't forget to share this to an Islam Makachev fan, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.